All right, hi everyone. Welcome to today's session. We're going to be talking about the CCNP security. Okay, so I'll just go over briefly, just talk about CCNP security in general, and then take some questions, and then maybe if time permits, we can start with a couple of topics to begin with. Let me just share my screen. Okay, and if there are any questions, feel free to put it in the chat window. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions if there are any.
Hi, good morning. Sorry, please, what's your name?
It's Arun.
Arun. Okay, Arun. Okay. And Arun, I have one more question. Like, we have Saturday, Sunday classes, right? So, how long will be the session? Like a 3 hours session or it's a 2 hour session?
Anywhere from between 2 to 3 hours.
2 to 3.
Yeah,
And
that's
the
what
timing will be
typically.
the same. And timing will be the same.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay, everyone can see my screen, hoping. So the classes are mostly going to be a combination of me whiteboarding or blackboarding in this case, right? So I typically don't like to use slide decks. Okay, so it's mostly going to be blackboarding, and then obviously we're going to be running through lots of labs. Okay, so CCNP security. As you would be aware, Cisco um, quite some time ago, it revamped its certification, wherein previously we used to do multiple exams to achieve a CCNP, and it could be any track. Like now, to achieve a CCNP, you basically only have to give two exams. Okay, one is a core exam, which is mandatory. Okay, from security perspective, this is the SPCOR. Okay, the exam number for this is 350701. Okay, and once you give this exam, you also become eligible to sit for the CCIE lab exam as well. Okay, so there are no more CCIE written exams. All right. The other piece to getting your CCNP is to give a concentration exam. Okay, so you have to give one core exam plus one concentration exam to achieve CCNP. And when we talk about concentration, there are different exams available that you can choose from. Okay, so the SCORE typically deals with a lot of different products, but it does not go into too much details about those products. Concentration exams is where Cisco really wants to deep dive and be very product specific. Okay, so from a concentration exam, you can choose from the SNCF exam, which is primarily for the next generation firewall. Okay, from Cisco's perspective, they call it the secure firewalls. Then you then have the option to do CISA. Okay, this deals with ICE, AAA, radius, TACACS, network visibility, policy management, etc. If you wish to, you can also do the SVPN exam, which is primarily implementing VPNs from Cisco Security Solutions perspective. You have the option to also do SESA or SWSA. Okay, these are part of the content security. Okay, if someone wishes to, they can also do their automation exam as auto. Okay, so it primarily deals with any sort of advanced automation involving security solutions. Okay, and there is a new exam that has been launched, and this is basically designing and implementing cloud access for users and endpoints. Okay, so it's a pretty cool exam, lots of different or lots of newer features. Okay, a lot of new products. So this has you deal with SD-WAN, deal with Umbrella, Duo, etc. Okay, so this is what the CCNP security portfolio currently looks like. Okay, so again, a core exam, which is mandatory, okay, and plus one concentration exam. So in order to achieve a CCNP, in our case, CCNP security, you basically have to do 2 exams only. You are free to give as many of these exams as possible. Okay, so if you want, you can do all of the concentration exams. For every concentration exam that you do, Cisco will award you with a specialist certification. Okay, when you do a core exam, you get a specialist certification as well. So technically, when you give a CCNP now, you are awarded 3 certifications. 2 specialist certifications plus the CCNP certification once you do the core and the concentration. Okay. Any questions with respect to that?
Yeah, I have one question. Like we can do this CCNP security core exam along with the CCNP data center.
Yes, you can, but you cannot mix match. Okay, so what I mean by mix and match is you cannot do the DC core, which is the core exam for the data center. Okay, and you cannot do SNCF, which is from security perspective. So you won't be awarded a CCNP data center or a CCNP security. Okay, so within the track, you have to complete the core plus that track's concentration exam to be able to do or being awarded the CCNP. The rest, you can do any exams that you want. Okay, you could do DC core if you just want to do the core exam for data center and then do the concentration exams for security. You will be awarded those individual specialist certifications, but you will not receive any CCNP in that case.
So Arun, when you said like the concentration exam, so it includes all the things you already mentioned, like the certification for SVPN, SIs, all those. So we have to take one of those, right? In
Correct.
concentration exam,
Correct.
or two, or one.
From concentration exam to get the CCNP, you have to do one of them.
One of them.
But you are
Okay.
free to do all of them if you want.
Okay.
For each concentration you do, you will be awarded a special certification.
Okay.
Okay. So let's say maybe in your day-to-day work, you deal with firewalls, you deal with ICE, you do VPN. Okay. Feel free to do
Hmm.
all three of those as a concentration exam.
So my question is, in this security, it's a CCNP security. So our curriculum includes Palo Alto firewalls too, or no?
No, this is primarily from the perspective of Cisco. So it's Cisco centric.
Okay. Okay, Cisco Center, ASA. Okay.
ASA, firepower.
Firepower. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the SNCF here deals with ASA plus the FTD. The CISA here is ICE. SVPN, this is basically dealing with site-to-site VPN, remote access VPN. From Cisco iOS perspective, from routers perspective, you would also be doing DMVPN as well. Okay. And then ESA, WSA, it's the email security, web security, whereas you do email security solution and then the proxy, the web proxy for these exams. Okay. S-Auto is automation. Okay. So API is dealing with Python scripts, etc. Okay. And then the SCZAT I already mentioned. So SD-WAN, Umbrella, Duo, some of the other things. It also goes into Cisco Declaration, okay, or it's now called as secure workload. Right? A variety of different other solutions from the perspective of user and endpoint protection. Okay, when they try to access the cloud. Okay, which is what nowadays the networks are moving forward to, right? A lot of hybrid, a lot of cloud-based access, lots of things, right? So protecting the users, whether they're on premises, sitting behind your, or sitting in the data center versus if they are working from home or from any other location, you want to give a very unified kind of an experience from policy perspective, et cetera, access policy perspective. So that's what the SCAZT deals with. Okay, so from our CCNP security perspective, we will be dealing with everything that you see in the concentration piece. Okay, so this would also prepare you for SCORE, but we are not going to talk about a lot of the theoretical pieces within the SCORE. Okay, so we are going to skip theoretical pieces, which are only necessary from an SCORE perspective, and we are going to full-blown deep dive into the products one at a time. Okay, and we're going to see ASA, FTD, we're going to see VPN in action, ICE. Okay, so out of all of these, ICE is the most time consuming. Okay, so if you have experience with ICE, great. If you don't have experience in ICE, good as well. Okay, so each of these products we are going to be covering in quite a lot of detail. Okay, right from scratch. Okay, so building the foundation, then looking at the advanced things. Okay, but the ICE piece is the most time consuming. It takes a lot of time. Followed by the ASA FTD VPN piece as well. Okay. And then some of the other things that you don't see in here, which we also talk about during that, is your Stealthwatch, for example, SNA, okay, Secured Network Analytics. I do talk about, again, Duo Umbrella, okay, Duo Umbrella, SASE, okay, SSE, or Cisco Secure Access, right? So there are going to be some of the additional things that we will be discussing as well. Okay.
So in this model, what we are going to cover?
Which model?
I mean, this is going to be SCOR, right?
This is going to be everything minus the SCOR. Okay, so like I said, we are going to be not talking about the different theoretical pieces within the SCOR. Okay, and SCOR just skims the surface for the products. Okay, what we'll be doing is we'll be learning about the products in detail. Okay, as if preparing from a concentration exam perspective, that would in turn also prepare you for the SCOR. Okay.
So, hi, quick question here. This is Vikram. I attended 2 weeks ago, but I think you guys were wrapping up one of the classes. Is this the fresh batch for CCNP?
Correct.
Okay, when did it start, sir?
Right now.
Oh, today is the first class.
Right.
Okay, okay.
Yes. Anyone else with any questions?
Arun, in which order we are going to cover these all topics, and how about the SDN? Is it also included in that?
So from an order perspective, we'll start with the firewall piece. Okay. I typically then like to either do ICE or VPN. Okay. And then we'll cover the content security piece. And then after that, we have the rest of these topics coming. Okay. So that typically is the order. Right. And then one other thing that I missed writing in here was infrastructure security. Talking about from the perspective of L2 protection, layer 3, layer 4 device protection, management plane protection for your devices, control plane protection for your devices. Okay, so that is another topic that we go over. Okay, and from an SDN perspective, there is not much from an SDN perspective with the CCNP security. Okay, a small piece within SDN from the perspective of security is the DNAC's integration with ICE to segmentation pieces. Okay, but then again, we'll discuss that from the ISIS perspective. Okay, so if you really are very keen about SDN, then SDN is in much more detail, is covered in the CCNP Enterprise track. Okay, so the EN core And then if you are interested, you can do the SD-WAN exam in there. Okay. The EN core will talk about the SDA, software-defined access fabric piece, and then the SD-WAN as well. So that would be the SDN from Cisco's perspective on the Cisco board. Okay. On the security side of things, SDN piece is very small, mostly this here. Okay, which I'll talk about when we'll discuss the ICE thing. Okay, any more questions?
Do we cover FTD and this ASA?
Yes, right. It's mentioned right here.
Arun, is there a PPT that I can refer to on what we covered day-to-day basis, Arun? Because the recording is long and it's not time-wise, it's not efficient for me.
PPT from the perspective of the topics that we are covering,
So,
just topics or the actual content?
probably both.
So from a presentation perspective, I mean, like I said, I don't use slide decks, so I don't have any slide decks myself for any other topics. Okay. If you would want on a topic basis, right? I might have something to provide. Okay, but
Okay.
that just highlights the topics that will be covered during classes. Okay, which is something that I can. Let me just bring it up real quick. I'm gonna unshare my screen for a moment. Okay, so if you're looking for something along the lines of this, I can share that. Okay, and
No,
you could just
this doesn't.
ignore the number of hours. It's just ignore
No,
the
this
number of
doesn't
hours here.
say day-to-day topics that we cover, right? I know this self. Let me open this self-paced learning and see how it is put through there. Because last time when I checked, it wasn't that user-friendly, and I wasn't getting much when I went through the recordings.
Okay. Presentation, I mean, I can see if I have the time, I could do some slide decks, okay, provide, but can't really promise that. Okay, because like I said, I mean, I do mostly boards and then I can share the boards in a PDF format if that works. Okay, so whatever I'm whiteboarding, let's save them as maybe images or maybe as part of a PDF on a per day basis, whatever we cover. And then so you could maybe reference that later on along with the videos and everything, if that works.
We'll see. We'll see how it
Okay.
goes.
Right. So this is what the content here is going to be on a per product basis. Okay. So just ignore the versions and just ignore the R's. Okay. I'm saying that's because whatever the latest version is available currently as part of the lab, we'll be looking over at that. Okay. So starting off with the ASA, we do talk about and we do cover how the ASA came into existence, how do you deploy an ASA, right? Um, doing the day zero config for the ASA, understanding how the traffic flow works, how routing works, NATing, very important piece. Okay, then we look at MFP, the modular policy framework. Okay, how do you create your class maps, policy maps, etc., to achieve some pretty cool things what the ASA can do. We then look at transparent firewall, understand what are different firewall modes that we do, okay, which primarily is it acting as a router and then all, or as a switch, which is the transparent mode. So we'll see what it can do with that. Okay, look at QoS, HA, clustering, all important pieces, and then security context, which is also the virtualization bit. Okay, and all of this, it's mostly going to be CLI, and I'll also show you the ASDM part, okay, which is it's kind of like an application, Java-based application that you can use to connect to an ASA and configure it. Okay, if someone does not like CLI, but for the most part, CLI is where the actual power is behind the ASA. Okay. From here, obviously the typical course of action typically is to move into next generation firewall. Okay, so we'll look at how firepower came into existence, how ASA evolved into next generation firewall. Okay, and then from an AS and from a next generation firewall perspective, we'll look at the traffic flow. How do we create policies? Okay, what's the whole idea behind objects and devices within the firewall? Okay, and some of these advanced topics that you see here. Okay, network discovery, IPS, right? We'll do NAP, we see file detection, and how the malware protection works. Okay, this is the SSL or the TLS decryption. Identity policy, how you can integrate the firewall with something like, let's say, Active Directory or ICE, or maybe a passive identity connector, okay, which you can run on something like Active Directory or any other device, maybe a PC or something, okay, which can connect to the Active Directory and it can connect to the firewall to provide user details, Active Directory groups, username, IP address, MAC address when the user logs into the network. All of that information can be passed on to the firewall, and then you can create policies based on that. Okay, and then from a logging and a monitoring perspective, I've got a couple of some advanced topics here. For example, correlation policies. Okay, a lot of people would have worked or might have worked on the secure firewall or the firepower, but might not have a lot of experience with the correlation policies part. Okay. After this, in here, you see we have VPN. It's based on firewalls, both my firewalls, from Cisco routers perspective, and then the AnyConnect, which is the Cisco VPN client. Okay, so we use this for remote access. Okay, for client-based VPNs. Okay, so in here we discuss cryptography concepts. Okay, what is IPsec? What does PKI? What are different VPN types and modes? Why would you use one versus the other? Okay, and there are lots of different varieties of VPN that we'll discuss. Some of them you might not have heard about or might not have worked about or worked with, okay? Primarily looking at GetVPN and FlexVPN. Okay, a lot of people have no idea what those are. Okay, you don't see DMVPN in here, but we do talk about DMVPN in quite detail. Okay, and this is mostly from the perspective of DMVPN, single hub and single cloud. Okay, which is where the iOS VPN comes in from. Okay, and then we look at the AnyConnect VPNs, which is this guy here, remote access VPN, and we look at client-based VPNs or web VPNs as well. Okay, so again, VPN topic is very crucial nowadays, very important. Okay, if you have to deal with or work with a lot of different things, you still need VPN, and you need VPN irrespective of whether you are on the Cisco side of things or if you are, maybe working with Palo Alto, maybe doing checkpoint, things of those nature. Okay, you would still need VPNs. So we try to cover the concept of VPNs in a more generic way. Okay. Plus also, since we are dealing with CCNP security, we look at how Cisco does VPNs across their products. Okay. Any questions for any of these before I remove this and move on?
So Arun, will you
Good
share
afternoon,
this?
sir.
Yes, go ahead, one at a time. Yep.
Yeah, Arun, will you share this thing, the outline?
Yeah, sure. This can be shared. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, there was someone else who was trying to ask a question.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Yes, very good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. Yeah, I just come in. I just wanted to greet you to tell that I'm a new person, so like everybody. So just to greet you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, let's move on. So other things to cover here, the infra security part, where we talk about layer 2, layer 3 attacks. Okay, how do they affect your switches, your routers, and what you can do to protect them, protect your users. Okay, we look at NFP, which is Cisco's Network Foundation Protection Framework. This talks about what all you can do to protect your layer 2 and layer 3. Okay, we look at and try to understand what management traffic is, how we can secure management traffic, how we can secure device images and config files, how can we secure routing protocols, and in general, just understand how we can secure management plane and control plane on your network infra devices. Okay, so this is not really a big section, but it really talks about a lot of things which your switches and router offer from a security perspective, and or maybe a lot of people don't use it or don't have knowledge about. Okay, so we try to cover and talk about those. Okay.
So Arun, for these L2, L3 protection, do we do the labs in it or just
Everything
theoretical
that you
concept?
see are labs. So all of these
Or
topics
labs,
that I'm
okay.
talking about, they are labs.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Content security, right? This is the WSA, which is Cisco's web proxy, and the ESA, which is the email security, mainly protecting SMTP. Okay, so if people don't have experience with SMTP, they don't know how it works, then we'll cover that in quite a much detail. And then just look at how web proxy works in detail. Okay, so we talk about one of these features here. Okay, from web proxy perspective, how to implement proxy services, how to do proxy authentication, how to create proxy policies, okay? Things along the line of URL filtering, how can we do bandwidth control through the proxies, what is AVC, typically is application visibility and control. Okay, we're going to also see AVC from the perspective of next generation firewall as well. Okay, how the proxy does decryption for secure protocols, something like HTTPS. Okay, and then this is where the email security part comes in. Talking about SMTP, how your ESA server acts as a relay, what's the packet flow for the ESA, what are reputation filters, okay, how does anti-spam and antivirus works, what is content filtering, how the outbreak filters work, what is content security with respect to any content that is being sent through emails, maybe URLs, maybe attachments, how the ESA can scan those, remove them, filter them, maybe do some additions to the emails before they are forwarded to the users. Okay, so this is the
So
content
it's
security.
almost near to like almost hand in hand in say cybersecurity, what I'm looking at.
Correct.
It's right.
Mostly yes. So
Mostly
now,
because so it's a web WAF is also there.
no. So
No.
Cisco potentially does not do WAF. So it does WAF, but it itself does not have a product for WAF. Okay. So Cisco offers WAF solution in collaboration with Radware. Okay.
Got
So
it.
there is a product Radware Altion, which offers WAF. Okay, and it's in collaboration with Cisco. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if I talk about a more pure Cisco solution, there's no WAF solution,
Oh, okay.
purely just from Cisco. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But malware detection and all those things we will do.
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah.
So next generation firewall
Yeah.
does that. ESA, WSA do that as well.
Hmm.
All right, coming down here to ICE. And I technically cover ICE in its entirety. Okay, so if people have experience with ICE, with AAA, with Radius Server, you're still going to learn something out of the ICE module. Okay. If anyone has worked with ClearPass, Aruba ClearPass, if you have worked with maybe Forescout.
I worked a little bit on the ClearPass, a little bit on the Aruba.
Okay. Yeah, so in that case, some of these topics might be, you might recall some of these topics. If you have worked with ClearPass, you would have seen some of these on the ClearPass. Okay. So, like I said, we'll discuss AAA in most of its entirety. That's why it takes quite a bit of time. Plus, another reason is the exam tests you in quite a lot of detail. When I talk about the CCIE exam, okay, if you're going to look at the blueprint for that exam, it really goes into, into the depth of what ICE does really. And it's mostly from the perspective of designing and implementing. Okay, so you should know things like guest access. How do you implement wired and wireless 82.1x? Okay, ICE AD integration, very important. Okay, what is posturing? What is device profiling? Okay, nowadays another important concept is BYOD. Bring your own device.
So Arun, and when we do the ICE, so we do the you said like the designing and implementation. So in implementation, we do from the base configuration from the
Correct.
switch to the everything, right? To
Everything that we
ICE
do,
stack.
all of the labs that you see, it's typically going to be from scratch. So I'm assuming that you don't have experience with anything.
No, okay. No, okay.
Okay. So I do expect you to know at least how routing and switching works, how packet forwarding works, how things like ARP work, how things like DHCP works. Okay.
Right, right.
Those are the things that I won't touch upon with, but
Do
I
do
don't
we
expect you.
cover, so
Mhm.
do we cover like so it's like a production kind of thing I just want to discuss over here. So so yesterday there was a ticket going on, right? In my workplace. So one of the user is getting through our super admin privileges. Even I configure to the user VLAN, right? But
Mhm.
he's going, so I again configured, but it's still going through. So that was a case in like where the Windows team came in, and it's a thing with the Zscaler. So do we cover a little bit on Zscaler thing or no?
Um, so what do you have with Zscaler? Are you
So
doing
it's going because he's going,
connector?
he's getting different IP, which I don't have the control. It's a Windows team. So do we cover in this Zscaler or no? Zscaler is different totally
Right.
because it's a
Zscaler
cloud
is, yeah,
technology.
obviously. Correct. So we cover Zscaler's competition from Cisco. Okay. So the
Mhm.
competitive product that Cisco has, which competes with Zscaler in the market. Okay. So you typically, when you talk about Zscaler, Zscaler do either something called a ZIA or ZPA,
ZPA, yeah,
right? So the internet access
yeah,
and
the
private access.
internet private
All
access,
right.
yeah.
Cisco does something very similar with CSA. Okay. We call it, or Cisco calls it SIA and SPA.
So we
Okay.
are
So
covering
secure
this
internet
thing, and
access, secure private access. So I'll
we
talk
are
about
covering in this.
that.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
believe me, it is from a conceptual perspective to understand what the solution is and what it is trying to do. It is mostly similar.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay.
Just
So
like a next generation firewall.
just the framework. This is framework,
Correct.
different frameworks. So
Right.
okay.
The architecture would be different. The
Mm-hmm.
underlying architecture is different, but what it's trying to do, both the solutions from a, let's say from a user perspective, from an organization's perspective, right? Let's say if I'm
Mm-hmm.
CTO, from my perspective, if I look at both the solutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are both doing the same thing. Who does it better? I'm not going to go into those details. Okay. Who prices it better? Again, not going to go into those details, but I'll help you
That's
understand.
capex and opex and
Right.
all those things comes
Correct.
up. You know.
So
Yeah,
I'll make you understand what the solution really is,
yeah. Right,
right? And
right,
what
right.
it's trying to and what it's trying to solve from a business perspective. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What it's trying to do, what it's trying to achieve.
Right. Got it.
And these are the only two players in the market currently who are doing this. There are
Mm.
others might be coming up with these solutions or might be doing it still, but at a
But those
large
are the
scale,
true main players are the Cisco and the Zscaler.
correct. From a cloud
Mm.
security solution perspective.
Cloud security. Mm. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
Right. So ICE, we're going to end the topic of ICE with someone mentioned SDN. So this is the only piece within SDN that we'll take a look at. Okay. This is where we'll talk about Cisco TrustSec, which is a proprietary solution which Cisco has, Cisco delivers, or Cisco invented to resolve some issues with traditional ways of doing segmentation. VPN, sorry, not VPNs, VLANs, ACLs, etc. Okay, so that's what we'll take a look at. And again, this is the only piece for SDN that you really need to worry about from CCNP security perspective, or even CCIE security. Okay, if you are purely going to you want to understand how Cisco is tackling SDN, then, like I mentioned previously, you have SDA, which is for the LAN or the campus, and then you have SD-WAN, which is from the WAN's perspective. Okay, so both of these are covered, or you should be able to learn them. You will be tested for them during the CCNP Enterprise exam, typically at NCORE or ENCORE, okay, which is the core exam for the Enterprise, which previously used to be called as CCNP routing and switching. It's now called as Enterprise. Okay. Next thing is the topic of Stealthwatch. Okay. If you have never heard about or never worked with NetFlow, we'll talk about that. Okay. So at a high level, Stealthwatch is basically an NDR solution, a network detection and response. Okay. So its job is to look at the network through the data that it's collecting from various devices on the network, your servers, your routers, your switches, your firewalls. Even the data center, you would have your switches, right? Let's say from Cisco's perspective, if they're Nexus switches, okay? Then you have firewalls in the data center, you have firewalls in the at the edge of the network, depending upon how you're designing your network, okay? So you send all of that data to a Stealthwatch, okay? And it is basically able to tell you or raise alarms if it sees any anomalies, right? Maybe there is some user who's trying to do a scan, an IP scan or a port scan, okay? Which is from a network, from a Stealthwatch's perspective, it is, or it can be classified as an anomalous behavior, okay? Or maybe someone is trying to access some malicious website, is trying to download some malicious content. The Stealthwatch can see that, and it can raise an alarm. It can give you some detection capabilities. And then it can give you response capabilities as well. Okay, so if you see something like this being happening for a user, what can you do? Okay, so you have, or you can have Stealthwatch integration with something like ICE, for example. Okay, you can have its integration with something like your firewall. Okay, some other cloud-based integrations can be there, can be done by Stealthwatch. Okay, so it's mostly NetFlow. Okay, and NetFlow is, it is, I would say, if you've never heard about NetFlow, I'm not going to go into too much detail right now, but NetFlow is very similar to syslog. Not in the way that the packets are created, packets are sent, etc. But I just wanted to make you understand, just like syslog is used for logging to get information from devices, okay, collect them from a historical perspective. Maybe you can integrate it with a SIEM solution, something like Splunk, send it to Splunk, and then view your data there. NetFlow is very similar. Okay, and NetFlow is a Cisco proprietary thing. Okay, it has been a very successful protocol, NetFlow. In effect, that other vendors have come up with their own ways of doing NetFlow. For example, if I talk about Juniper, right? Juniper devices, or Juniper developed JFlow for their devices. Okay, HP, Dell devices, they invented their own SFlow. Okay, you have Huawei devices which develop their own NetFlow variant. Okay, and all of these are based on Cisco's NetFlow. Okay, so it's very easy to implement. It's very easy to enable NetFlow on your Cisco devices, iOS, iOS XE switches, routers, enable them on firewalls. All right, so that's what we'll spend some time on this, on the Stealthwatch. Yes, someone was asking a question.
Yeah, what's the difference between NetFlow and syslog? We still use syslog as of today.
Right.
So,
so like I said, So for example, syslog. Syslog, I would say, the first very major difference between syslog and NetFlow is syslog is not proprietary, right?
Okay.
It is mostly an industry-wide thing.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
So I could bring in any device,
Okay.
okay, any vendor neutral kind of a device or any third-party device, and then I could have it to syslog. Okay.
Okay.
But for NetFlow, I will need to have Cisco devices. One difference is
Oh.
that. Okay. Another difference is the data that NetFlow provides. Okay, so NetFlow is very similar to your phone bills that you get at the end of each month. Okay, so within those phone bills, you have conversations that are captured, right? Who called whom at what time? When did the call end? What was the duration of that call, right? How long did it go for, etc. It's the same way NetFlow creates data. Okay, what source IP talked to what source, what destination IP, what ports were used for the conversation, how much packets were transmitted between both of them, okay, so on and so forth. All right, so which you typically do not get that detail of information with something like syslog. And then there are additional information pieces that you can capture from NetFlow as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's at a high level, that's what the difference really is. And then since you add the Stealthwatch piece, you can also do encrypted traffic analysis. Okay, so your Stealthwatch is capable of looking into encrypted data and see if, maybe there is some sort of breach, some sort of an attack that might be happening in your environment, and someone might be trying to do some sort of a data tunneling or do some sort of a data exfiltration to encrypted packets. Okay, so it can do encrypted traffic analytics, ETA. All right, so it's a pretty cool solution. If designed correctly, obviously that kind of holds true for everything. Okay, if it's designed correctly, if you know what you're really doing, it can really help you gain a lot of network visibility.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why it's
how to familiarize with these terminologies, sir. So better understanding.
You'll be hearing a lot of this during the modules. Okay. Plus, the more that you work with it, you'll gain more experience, obviously. Okay. I understand lots of terms and everything, they're going to be there. But just try and understand those from the context of the product, from the solution. Okay. And then make lots of notes.
Okay.
Okay. Because let's say 2 months down the line, once you learn Stealthwatch, you're not going to know what Stealthwatch is, or you're not going to remember what Stealthwatch is. Okay. But if you have a notes created in your own language and the way that you understand stuff, okay, maybe if you look at 6 months down the line, you'll still be able to catch up real quickly on what you learned about Stealthwatch maybe 6 months down the line. Okay. So there are lots of keywords. If you're going to see here, BYOD, MAB, okay, ETA, CTA, etc. And they're going to be a lot more from the perspective of a lot of other products that we have. Okay, lots of different abbreviations, lots of different things. So best thing is to keep making notes for now, for the future as well. Okay. All right. So moving on from Stealthwatch, another product that we will discuss within this is, and I didn't write it in the initial thing, is AMP for endpoint. This is Cisco's EDR solution. Okay, so this was NDR, network detection and response. Okay, network visibility. It is Stealthwatch's new name that Cisco calls it is SNA, which I have been writing, okay, which is Cisco Network Analytics. Fits what it does from the network perspective, okay? Helps achieve network telemetry, provides lots of this visibility features. That's why it's being called as Cisco Network Analytics or Secured Network Analytics. EDR is endpoint detection and response. Okay, this is now we mostly closing in onto the actual endpoints on the actual user devices. Okay, so this is what AMP for endpoint achieves. This is called as secure endpoint. Okay, this is a small agent that you can install on your user devices, on your end user devices. Okay, and it works by acting as an antivirus, anti-malware, anti-spyware solution. Okay, so it can detect malicious behavior on the endpoints. Okay, so it can help you do that detection and provide some sort of remediations, responses that you can do to protect your endpoints. Okay, so again, looking at all of these different products that I have mentioned, you might be, why would I do, or why would someone implement all of these solutions, right? Why can't I have a single solution do everything? Okay, remember one thing with security. Okay, a lot of times we say the more that you have is typically not always a good thing. With security, what I believe is the more the better. Okay. And another thing from security's perspective, remember, an attacker has to be right and has to be able to do something only once to be able to breach the network. You as a network defender, okay, or you as a security architect, you as a security engineer who's trying to protect an organization, you have to be right and you have to be correct every single time, every single day to protect the organization. Okay, and an attacker has to be correct only once to be able to breach any part of your network. Okay, whether it's through a user, whether it's through an email, whether it's through maybe, let's say, any malicious packet. Okay, so the more tools that you have at your disposal, the better. Okay, so firewalls, again, they do good amount of pieces. They can sit on the edge of your network. They can sit in the core. Okay, so they can protect the edge, plus they can be done at the core as well, where they can do your north-south traffic protection as well as your east-west traffic protection. Okay, you can have them in the data center, similar design. They can sit at the data center edge, okay, or they can sit in the data center core, right? They have all the different features, malware, et cetera, but they are from the network perspective. Okay, now whatever that is happening, if you want additional visibility on it, then you add an NDR for the visibility piece. Okay, it might be something your firewall might have missed, right? Or you might not have firewall in a part of the network where there might be something malicious that might be happening. Okay. Similarly, how about when your users go back home? They're using corporate devices, right? They could use the corporate device to maybe surf the internet, do their personal work, and etc. Okay, so since they're not sitting in the network, you no longer have a firewall, right? They are going out through their network at home, maybe airport lounge, maybe coffee shop, anywhere. Okay, so nothing is stopping them from being able to knowingly or unknowingly download some malicious file They come back into office the next day, plug into your corporate network, and boom, you now have something malicious that's spread onto your network. Why? Because your user downloaded something last night. Okay, so you do EDR on the endpoint itself. Okay, so no matter if they are in the office, they're off premises, the EDR solution is protecting the device. Okay, and once they come back in the office, you still have that protection going on. Okay, you can then further couple this with something called as ICE, wherein you provide secure access. Okay, so anytime a user connects to a wired network on your in your organization, or it connects to wireless, you want them to be properly authenticated, properly authorized before you allow them network access. And then depending upon if it's a corporate device, it's a corporate employee, it's maybe an intern or a contractor, or maybe if it's a guest, it's a temporary employee. Don't give them the same kind of an access. Okay, so you give them differentiated access. You apply differentiated policies depending upon what sort of a user it is. That can be helped or achieved by ICE. And all of these devices, they can talk to each other. They can share all of that different information with each other, right? Firewall can say, hey, I'm seeing this from this user. ICE could say, hey, okay, I'll block its access. Okay, so all of these devices, they kind of very tightly can work together. They can work individually as well without any integrations as well. Okay? But I'll also focus on integration, right? Cisco has a lot of focus on integrations. Integrations is what helps a lot of these devices achieve a full-blown protection in the environment. Okay, so again, there typically cannot be a one solution fits all kind of a thing. Okay, I could not have one solution which will do firewall as well, which will do NDR as well, EDR as well, secure access, differentiated policies as well. Okay, so that's why you have a variety of different products. Okay, so once you try to understand, or once we kind of deep dive into a lot of these things, you're going to see what aspects of the network each of those protect. Okay, and again, remember this: redundancy is always a good thing with security. Okay, a lot of organizations do redundant firewalls as well, right? Maybe I'll put a Cisco firewall, and then I'll also put in Palo Alto firewall as well. Okay, because both of them are dealing with things differently. Okay, even though they might be implementing the same features, they are still firewalls. Both of them implementing URL filtering, for example. Different architectures. Okay, there might be something that Palo Alto misses. Okay, but the Cisco firewall captures, or vice versa. All right. So again, never shy away from using a variety of different products to secure the organization. Okay. And you would have that knowledge if you know what the different products are, what they're capable of doing. Okay. And from Cisco's perspective, the good thing is that they have a lot of these products in the market actively implemented, actively implementing, and then they are also forcing you to learn them through their certification. Okay. So this was, I mean, just a little detour kind of a thing while you're talking about the AMP. Okay. So it previously used to be called as AMP for endpoint. Okay. Just a product name, advanced malware protection. Okay. This 4E, this used to be for endpoint. Okay. So WSA, our next generation firewall, it also does AMP, but for network. Okay. So any network-based malware that is going through the network, okay, flowing through the firewall, flowing through the WSA. It can be protected by AMP for network. And if we are sitting, or if there's an agent that is sitting on the user device itself, right? Just like maybe you have something like Kaspersky or Malwarebytes, okay? So it's similar to what the AMP for endpoint does. Okay? And this is a SaaS-based solution. Okay, so there is nothing physical that you install on the premises. Okay, it's just these agents that you install onto the end user devices, and then they connect back to this Cisco cloud, Cisco AMP cloud, to get their policies, to report issues, etc., etc. Okay, so this is all that we'll cover. And if you're going to see, there is a cloud versus on-prem, right? So there is an on-prem appliance kind of a thing with this as well. Okay, and that is typically for environments which are air-gapped, okay, wherein they don't allow any internet connectivity, right? For example, military bases, okay, defense organizations, okay, other organizations, maybe hospitals, okay, maybe online trading companies, okay, maybe financial organizations which don't want to send the data to Cisco cloud. Okay, so for them, you can keep the data within the premises by using a variant of this cloud, which sits in your premises itself. Okay. So this on-prem, this is called as private AMP. Okay, it's private because it is sitting in your organization. All right. And the other thing that you would see here, it's this TG. Okay. Threat grid. Or secure malware analytics. This is Cisco's sandbox solution. Okay, so let's say this endpoint agent, or maybe my WSA or next generation firewall, they come across a file, right? And it is basically maybe a new malware, a new virus. Okay, we typically classify them as 0-day, which no one has seen before. Okay, now there happens to be a file which either of these devices, these solutions, they come across. Okay, and they are not able to decide whether that file should be allowed or not. Okay, so in that case, obviously they cannot just allow the file. Okay, what if it's a virus? If it's a new type of virus, the user will run that file and infect itself and the network. Okay, so what they can do is they can send this file to this threat grid cloud. Within the cloud, automatically, there would be a virtual machine that will be built. And this file will be executed within this virtual machine. And AI and ML algorithms are going to see what that file is doing inside of that virtual machine. Okay, whether that file is changing extensions, whether it's making any changes to system files, whether it's trying to make any HTTPS connections outbound, right? All of these are malicious behaviors. Okay, so based on what all this file does, this cloud can decide whether the file is malicious or not. And then it can tell that to the devices. And based on that, the devices can take an action, which typically would be to block the file if it is showing some sort of a malicious intent. Okay, so sandboxing is very important, right? Especially from a 0-day attack perspective or 0-day malware perspective. This is very similar to if anyone has worked with Palo Alto. Palo Alto does Wildfire. Okay, so they can do Wildfire Cloud. They do Wildfire on their devices, right? So it can do sandboxing, right? FedGrid does the same thing. If anyone has worked with Fortinet, Forti has Forti Sandbox, does the same thing. Okay, so Cisco calls it FedGrid or Secure Malware Analytics. And it's the same thing, right? Again, for some organizations, sending their files outbound of their network, of their environment to the cloud is not allowed. Okay, so for that, you can implement the sandbox on premises as well. Okay, something like a virtual machine or maybe something like hardware appliance. Okay, offering the same thing, but it kind of keeps the compliance for the organization as well. All right. Any questions?
Do we cover load balancer in this module?
We don't have any load balancers from Cisco. And again, it's not part of a security kind of a thing as well. Okay, so we don't have any load balancer as part of this. Okay.
Okay.
The last piece that we'll discuss is this, right? So it's umbrella. And within this, we're going to talk about the CSA that I discussed previously, the SPA and the SIA. Okay. And then within this, I'll also talk about SASE and SSE as well. Okay, not mentioned here, but this is what we will discuss. We'll discuss umbrella, right, which is Cisco's DNS protection solution. Again, it is a SaaS-based thing. Okay, so we'll discuss what it does. Then I'll also discuss within this SIG, Secure Internet Gateway. Okay, how Umbrella can integrate with SD-WAN. Okay, how it can do SASE, things of those nature. And then one last topic that we will discuss within this is going to be Duo. Okay, if anyone has worked with, so has anyone worked with any MFA solutions? Things like Okta or Ping ID.
Not Okta and Ping ID, no.
Okay, so these are multi-factor authentication solutions, right? This is Cisco's solution for MFA.
I use for my NetAcad, so do.
Right. So MFA is super important nowadays. Okay, so if you are gonna notice a lot of, let's say, social networking websites, a lot of other networking websites, or any websites or any accounts that you might have, nowadays they're all pushing for multi-factor authentication. Okay, which is because to protect against password attacks, any brute force attacks, right? People have a habit of reusing passwords across multiple places, right? So they would probably use the same password that they have for Facebook. They would use it for their corporate accounts as well. Okay, they would use it for their
When they
email accounts
compromise,
as well.
everything is compromised.
Absolutely.
Everything is compromised then.
So if Facebook goes through a breach and the password is compromised, if that same password is being reused everywhere, all of your accounts are automatically compromised. Okay, because what the attackers do is when they do a breach, they have the data, which typically is they're mostly interested in user data, right? Your PII information. your name, date of birth, phone number, where do you live, address, etc., etc. Okay, so that they can create fake identities of you. Okay, and also they're interested in passwords, right? These passwords, they kind of get sold on the black market. From internet's perspective, it's called as a dark web. Okay, so anyone can purchase these passwords, build their own dictionary. Okay, and then let's say next day they want to maybe attack what? Maybe let's say Instagram. Okay, the very first thing that you're going to do is they're going to have this dictionary and they try to do brute force attack against using their dictionary against Instagram, right? So if your password was part of a breach and you also use Instagram using that same password, they would know that. So automatically you basically get compromised across different places, right? So it's always emphasized to not reuse passwords, to use strong passwords, right? So you should not use something like your birthday and 123, okay, or ABC 123, right? That's why MFA is important. Okay, so even if
Should be
someone is able to figure out, yeah,
alphanumeric,
right.
alphanumeric.
So if even if someone is able to figure out your password, right? If your account is being integrated with MFA, then you would typically have to put in an OTP, okay? Or you would get some sort of a notification on your device. So in order for you to breach, or in order for the attacker to breach your network, they will need to have access to your password as well as your personal device as well, right? Which typically has a 0.0001% probability. Okay, so very important MFA nowadays. Okay, so Duo helps with implementing MFA. Okay, multi-factor authentication. We'll discuss what multi-factor authentication is, different ways in which you can do two-factor authentications and whatnot. Okay, so this is what the entirety of what you can expect from this. Okay, lots of different things, lots of different products to cover, lots of different topics to talk about. Okay, lots of different things might be very new to a lot of you. For example, something like MFA, or maybe cloud protection, DNS protection, maybe even endpoint protection. Okay, some of you might have worked extensively with next generation firewalls. Okay, but you still will get to learn something additional from the next generation firewall piece, which you can go back and you can apply to your own environments, to your own networks. Okay, or maybe it might help you to prepare you for your next interview. Okay, where you might be, trying to interview for a Cisco-based position, or maybe even any other vendor-based position as well. Okay, so a lot of this knowledge that you can expect, you should be good with implementing it across any vendor. Okay, because at the very foundational level, at the protocol level, apart from a couple of things, for example, let's say NetFlow, okay, everything is industry-based protocols. It's just that how Cisco is taking those protocols and creating their own architecture, implementing it differently themselves. Okay, it's as simple as OSPF being implemented by Cisco routers versus Juniper routers versus maybe HP routers. Okay, same protocol, concept remains the same. The architecture and the work that it does in the background could be different, but what it achieves is basically the same thing, what OSPF does. Okay, so same principle here.
So the IDS and IPS is not anymore the part of Cisco,
IDS is IPS is absolutely a part of. It will be covered as part of the next generation firewall. So I specifically did not highlight that, because whenever I say next generation firewall, IPS is always going to be there. Okay, so that's why I kind of did not highlight it specifically.
You call a big dog.
Right.
IPS. Big dog and small
So
dog.
without an IPS, a next generation firewall is really, it will be missing a very big piece. Okay, so absolutely you have IPS there. Okay, so I've been talking for the past 1.5 hours. I'm going to take a break.
So,
I'll be open for any questions if anyone
Arun,
has.
just as a request, so I have to leave class early, like in half an hour. If a class agreed, um, do
I mean,
we
we
do
are
like?
good for today.
Oh,
So
you
I'm
are
not going
good.
to be continuing
Okay.
anymore. Yeah, so it was typically, so today and tomorrow it will be typically short
Oh,
kind of
okay.
intro
So it's
based
the
things.
most important. So that's why I have to go outside. That's why I'm
Right.
just
So
asking.
the
Right.
main, yeah, the main agenda is to help you understand what you can expect from this, right?
Right.
Also to give you an idea of how I explain things and how I teach things mostly. Okay, so first two
Right.
classes are
Right.
mostly because of that. Okay, so I'm open for any questions if anyone has any questions. Okay.
So Arvind, last thing before we wrap up, how about the labs? Will we be provided with some like topologies, or so we can get our
Correct.
hands dirty with that?
Right. So you are free to create your own topologies if you would want to. Okay. Whatever topologies I will be creating or I'll be following during the walkthroughs, those topologies will any which ways will be available for you to follow along as well. Okay. But if you feel like you have additional topologies that you yourself would want to implement, you would want to see how those behave, then you would be free to do those as well. Okay,
Uh,
so everyone should really have access to their own racks or pods. Okay, so lab should not be a problem.
I don't. Before leaving, just if you share this, so I will download from the chat this outline. If you don't mind.
This won't be shareable over the chat. Okay, but this is,
Okay. If
yeah,
okay.
I'll make it
So
available. Okay, so everyone should be able
if you
to.
share in the email or in
Yeah,
the email
I'll share
or
it with the team. Okay, so it
okay.
should be available for everyone.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
So I'm okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Have a
All
good day.
right. Any other questions anyone has? Or are we good to wrap up?
Arun,
Yes,
one last.
hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to know because the whole program has just rest. It seems like we are just going to the whole CCNP is according to the ISA. I don't know whether there is another like firewall that is implicated in it.
I really won't be able to answer that, unfortunately. So that is something that you can talk to the team, and they would probably give you details if there are other firewall uh, going on as well. Okay.
So the CCNP that you are going to do is just for the Cisco
Cisco.
adaptive security
Correct.
appliance.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So what about the labs? During the lecture, will you have any labs that we can follow? Will you have access to networking labs?
Right. Absolutely. You would. That's what I just explained.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I
So,
didn't hear you.
Arun,
Yes.
one quick question regarding the labs, right?
Mhm.
Is it like after the class or during the class, you will also be showing us, the how to build our, those topologies, etc.
I can do that.
Or we,
That's fine.
okay, okay,
Yeah. If you would want me to, then I can, yep, showcase that as well once we
okay,
start the classes. Okay.
sure, sure. Thanks. So can we
Yeah.
also build, say, something? I know, like you guys provided the virtual labs.
Mhm.
Can we also try to put something on our, say, I have a small server at home.
Mhm.
install and play around?
I mean, you are free to do anything with your own laptop, right? So whatever topologies that you see, right? Obviously, you could install something like EVNG or maybe Peanut Lab or something, and then you can replicate the topology. That's fine. That should be
Okay.
pretty doable. Yeah. And if you need some help with that, I could probably help you out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Any more questions? Anyone?
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah, hi. Bhaskar this side.
Yes.
Yeah, my question is, what will be covering on the core part? It means the S core part. Are you going to cover it?
Yeah. So like I said, I mean, whatever we are going to cover and talk about, that should be automatically covered as part of the SCORE.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
So, Kused, the class starts when?
I mean, so tomorrow as well, we're going to do a short class like today, and then we should be good with starting it next weekend.
Okay, okay. Tomorrow at the same time?
Yes, right. Same time.
With the same link? Zoom link?
Yes, most probably. So if you receive a new one, that'll be great. If not, you should be good with joining the same link.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay.
That's cool. Okay, that's cool.
All right. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Sync up double. Okay,
I
sync up
think for
double.
today is this much, right?
Right.
So I can leave now.
Right. If you have no questions, then feel free to drop.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. All right then, guys. Thanks everyone for joining in. I'll see you guys again tomorrow.
Thank you.
Right. Have a good time. Bye-bye.